the Women Unleashed podcast. Join us as we share with you the confronting, fun, wild, fucked up, epic, and raw side of being a woman in today's world.
Come along on our journey as we dive deeply into what makes us tick and how we create our lives. Nothing is off limits. Welcome back to the Women Unleashed podcast. We are your hosts, Bridge and Taylor, and today we are talking about deposits and other costs associated with buying a house. And this is episode 2 in our little mini series of mortgages and housing, of which Taylor is the expert of.
Thanks, Britt. Just to make sure everyone is aware and we're all clear, this is all general advice and it's not specific to your situation. So please make sure you do go and get the right advice for you. Speak to a professional and make sure that what you're choosing to do or what you want to do does actually suit you and your needs.
So in the first episode, we talked about like what the process is around when you should come talk to a mortgage broker and what are the sorts of things that you do and in your process. So if you missed that, please go back and have a little listen. But today we're going to dive into deposits.
Yes.
Fantastic. What's the first thing that comes to your mind, Taylor, when somebody says deposit?
So I guess that's your contribution to purchasing a home. So what do you need to contribute to make up the difference between the loan and the purchase price and the costs?
Okay, yeah, that's a great definition. What is your contribution? Cool. All right. So how much of a contribution is necessary? Is there a number that's like you can't like this is a must have before you buy a house, or it just is there a spectrum?
So it's really kind of hard to say like you should have this much because there is so many. As a first home buyer, there's lots of schemes out there that enable you to get into a home for a less deposit. You can also borrow up to 95% generally, including lenders' mortgage insurance. We'll touch on that a bit later. But some do a little bit higher. When you're buying investment properties, it's a whole other ball game. Generally need at least a 10% deposit. But I think, personally, I think 20K starting point is really good.
20 grand?
Yeah, as a first home buyer. Yeah, but that's on your lower end properties, I would say.
Yeah.
But I guess like coming to a broker and having a chat at 20K would not be silly. But it also depends what your goals are. If you're wanting to buy like an $800,000 property,
not the average
5% of 800,000 is 40,000, right, as a minimum. So when you're looking at your deposit, it's based on the shortfall between the loan and the purchase price. You've also got lender's mortgage insurance in there, so that's a cost. And then you've got your costs like your solicitors and your building and pets. So all of that.
And stamp duty.
And stamp duty, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And there's some other government fees. So all of that has to be accounted for with your contribution plus the loan.
Okay, so let's just state that again. In what you've saved up, your deposit, which is your contribution, you need to be able to pay for the stamp duty, the other government fees.
Yeah, so transfer of land and mortgage registration.
Okay, how much is that?
So mortgage registration is $197.
Okay,
and transfer of land depends on how much it costs to buy the home, so the value of the what you're paying for the
job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there are calculators like you Google stamp duty calculator or property buying costs calculator.
Okay.
They'll come up. And then you just put your purchase price in, and if it's an ONOC or an investment, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so stamp duty, other government fees, solicitor fees.
Which are generally about $1,500.
Yes.
So, and we, like when we're calculating all those, we will look at we'll add it all in. So
Add
you
it
know.
all in. Yep. What else was there? There was another one. Building and pest
Mm-hmm.
inspection. Is there anything
Bank
else?
fees.
Bank
Sometimes bank has
fees.
like application fees or
Yep.
other little,
Yep.
legal fees, stuff like that.
Okay.
There might be, when you actually settle on the house, there might be rates or
That
some
are
things.
due soon,
Yeah,
or-
that the
Yep.
owner's already paid for, and you've got to pay the difference.
Okay.
There might be some, other house fees that can come into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to leave a bit of a surplus, 1,000 minimum,
Yep.
to make sure we've got enough at settlement.
For that as well. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've always held in my head, like, or something that is one of those invisible barriers that I put up between me and buying a house or taking action and looking at it is, okay, I know there's like a deposit, but then there's like all these other fees and like stamp duty, like how much is that? And like that just, I'm like, oh, maybe I don't have enough. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, like I said, there's the calculator for stamp duty and things like that. If you want to get into the nitty gritty of the exact figures. As a first home buyer, though, if you buy a house, so let's just talk about Queensland, because we are in Brisbane. So if you buy a house $500,000 or less as a first home buyer, you don't pay stamp duty. So it's waived. So generally, as a first home buyer, if you buy a house for $500,000 or less, your fees, including solicitor, to all the fees we just went through, I would put about $3,000 for.
Wow. That's not much at all.
No. So that's why that 20, so 5% of 400,000 is the 20K.
Right.
So
yeah.
that's a good starting point. I'm not saying that that'll get you into the dream home. Probably not. But it's a very nice, way to start.
Good place to start.
And then
Okay,
we can
wow.
work up from there. So yeah.
Okay.
I just lost my train of thought for a second.
And stamp duty, what is that usually? Is it a percentage?
It's a percentage, and it's based on the value of the property.
Okay.
So if you decided to build, though, so you bought land and then went through a builder and constructed the home, land has to be $250,000 or less to not pay stamp duty.
Okay.
So obviously if your land's more than 250, you'll start paying stamp duty. And when you're working it out in a calculator or discussing it with your broker, we base it on the land value, not on the value once the home is built.
Okay, yeah.
But if you're buying an existing home, it'll be based on the obviously
Full value.
Yeah.
Okay, and what number percentage is it, or does the percentage
it scales.
change?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's not a fixed stamp duty. Is not a fixed percentage of the overall land value. There's a scale.
Yes.
Oh, delightful.
Yeah. And that's another thing you can check with your solicitor too. Make sure you've got, that because they will do all the stamp duty concessions and things like that. So we'll obviously go through it as well, but you can also double and triple check with a solicitor as well.
Okay, sweet. All right. Well, good
Yeah.
to know. 20K is a starting point.
I think so. People might disagree. But again, it's also depending on where you're buying and things like that. Because if you're buying, as I said, for 8, you probably do want minimum 30,000 to start, before we have a conversation,
Really having a conversation. Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. I'm just reading my notes here, Taylor, and I've spelled deposit with an E, like deposit. Like
Fancy.
French. Very, very fancy. Okay. Now, what is say you're an owner-occupier, what is the threshold for lender's mortgage insurance? Like how much a deposit do you need to not pay it
Yep.
versus...
So it's 80% to not pay lender's mortgage insurance.
Okay.
So, and that is with invest.
Sorry, 80% you need is the maximum loan
Yes.
that you can take out
Yeah.
without having to pay mortgage insurance?
Correct. So what they call loan to value ratio, or LVR, is basically what you owe or what you're borrowing versus the value as a percentage,
Okay, yep.
right? So what you are borrowing versus the value you want to stay at 80% or less.
Okay.
And that
yep.
means you don't pay lender's mortgage insurance.
Okay, yep.
Now, we should probably just tell people what lender's mortgage insurance is. Lender's mortgage insurance, or LMI, because I will probably start shortening to LMI, is basically a fee the lender adds onto your loan when you borrow more than 80% of the value of the property.
Yep.
Now, this insurance, as they call it, is not to cover you. It's actually to cover the bank because obviously you're getting riskier the higher you borrow, right? So it's just a fee they add on. It's a one-time fee that we add on to a loan. You can pay it as well, but most people just add it on to the loan that you need to pay for borrowing over 80%.
Yep. And so that ensures the lender, should you default on your loan, because borrowing anything greater than 80% is seen as like higher risk.
Correct. And it's also on a sliding scale as well, how much. So it's a percentage. The LMI will increase the higher your loan amount is to the value, and also the high. Like, so if you're borrowing 200,000 versus 600,000, again, even if you're both at 95%, it'll be a completely different amount because of the amount you're borrowing as well.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. Interesting. Very cool. Did that come around because of the 2008 global financial crisis? Is that sort of like
I think it's been around for a while.
Even before then?
I think so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe because... Right, that's cool. I didn't know that. Taylor's just going to do a quick Google to verify that.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I guess before the global financial crisis, I wasn't too aware, and I was in my early teens. I wasn't too aware of people borrowing more than 80% of the value of their home. So this...
It's been around since 1965.
1965, there you go.
Well, that's what, it was always different answers, but yeah, it's been around for a while, so.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's just to help, people get into the market sooner, really.
Yep. Okay. Right, well.
I thought, though, too, I would talk about the different first home buyer schemes as well.
Yes, because I saw a great post on Facebook, Instagram, not Facebook. You probably did both, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yep. I saw it on Instagram about a new scheme or a change to a scheme.
Yeah.
So take us through it.
Cool. So this scheme that I'm going to talk about is called the First Home Loan Deposit Scheme. There's the Family Home Guarantee and the New Home Guarantee. But they all kind of do the same thing. It just depends on the type of property you're buying. So the First Home Loan Deposit Scheme was brought out a couple of years ago by the government, and the government guarantees your home. So what it allows first home buyers to do is to borrow up to 95% of the value of the home without paying lenders and mortgage insurance. So that means first home buyers can get in with only a 5% deposit plus costs. So if you're buying a $400,000 home, you only need the $20,000 plus another $3,000 to cover your costs.
Wow, and that's for first home buyers only.
Yes, first home buyers. So that scheme's the First Home Loan Deposit Scheme, which is for existing homes, so homes already built.
And what's the maximum value of the home?
They're looking at going up to $700,000 now.
So it is 700, or
well, the new coming out in like this July, so they come out every July. There's 10,000 places. They're looking
so limited number of places.
Yes,
yeah, wow.
So there's 3 schemes, so per scheme.
Okay, all right.
So yeah. Yep. No, it's a lot.
Wow. Okay, yeah, because I just thought if it applied to any first home.
No. So and only certain lenders offer it as well.
Okay.
So that is for an existing home as a first home buyer, and you do need to have that saved genuinely. So that means that you've saved it over a 3-month period, your deposit, or you've been renting for 6 months. Okay. And can show that you've been renting if you, say, get a gift for the 5% or whatever.
Okay. Yep.
Now, the other scheme is called the New Home Guarantee, and that works the same as the First Home Loan Deposit Scheme, but it's for new homes. So it's got to be a brand new home never lived in, or you've got to be constructing it.
Okay, and you don't have to be a first home buyer?
You do. First home buyer.
You have to be a first home buyer and a new home
And a new home.
purchaser.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And then the third one is
And is the level still they're thinking about 700,000?
Yes.
Is the
Yeah.
Okay, and currently it is.
I think it's about 650.
Okay.
600 actually in Queensland. So
and there's 10,000 spots per year for that.
So 10,000 for new homes, 10,000 for existing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they brought out another scheme last year it's called the Family Home Guarantee, and it's actually for single parents.
Cool.
So it's where you can borrow up to 98% of the value of the home. So that means you only need a 2% deposit plus costs. You do have to be a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a dependent under 18.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be legally separated.
Mm.
So if you were married, you have to be divorced. You can't just be not living together. If you were obviously never married and you're separated, that's fine. So that means you can borrow up to 98% with no lender's mortgage insurance. And you can have owned a home before as well as a single parent. But you can't have one now.
Okay. Wow. That's fascinating. So 2% deposit and 10,000 places per year again.
Yeah.
650,000 is the current value of the property limit, and that possibly might be going up with the other one.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's 6. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's 650.
Okay.
So yeah, it's just an awesome way for first home buyers to get in sooner into their home. And it also can be used in association with other like other first home buyer opportunities as well. Okay. So like that stamp duty, you can also get your stamp duty waived up to 500. You can also get the first home buyers grant. Mm-hmm. So in Queensland, that's $15,000 towards your first home, as long as it's brand new or you're constructing it.
Oh, so that's separate to the...
Yep.
Wow.
So you can use that, plus the stamp duty, plus that scheme. Like, it's just amazing. I know.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then you also have the super savings scheme, which is where you can actually contribute extra to your super and pull it out. So you can pull out, I think it's up to $50,000 out of your super that you've put in extra. So that's to be on top of your
basic contributions.
Correct.
Like 10%.
Correct. So it's a good way to save if you struggle with, not touching your savings and things like that. So yeah, that's another thing to think about as well.
Gosh, there's so many schemes. Where's the best place to go to like, are they available like all in one spot to read about? Or
Yes. Yeah. So they're on the website. I think it's NH. Let's just double check that one.
Let's have a look. And I do have another question for you after that, which is about
so it's on the website www.nhfic.gov.au. And it tells you about all of the schemes' eligibility. I will say one thing too. For the eligibility, you do have to be an Australian citizen.
Okay.
So you can't be a permanent resident. And as an individual, you have to be earning $125,000 or less a year. And that needs to be shown on your notice of assessment.
Okay, yep.
And if you are a couple, it's $200,000 or less.
Okay, cool.
And the property price threshold is $600,000 in Queensland at the moment. So it's going up $100K.
Great. So you've got to be an Australian citizen earning under $125,000 a year or $200,000 a year as a couple. And that's to be eligible for any of those in the on the website there. Okay. And what is it? NHFIC stands for National Housing Finance and Investment Corporation.
Yeah.
Cool.
Just an easy one to remember.
Yes. And is it first in, first serve with these?
Pretty much.
Okay.
So you can secure a spot, so like reserve a place. So if you do a pre-approval, you can reserve a place for 90 days.
Oh, cool.
There are still spots open too. So it started in July last year. There's still spots open.
Wow.
Only for new homes and family guarantee.
Okay. Wow.
Not for existing homes.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah,
so
that would be probably the easiest one.
So July new places will come out.
exciting.
Yes. Yeah, it's awesome. It's so good. It's amazing opportunities as a first home buyer out there. Really is.
Yeah.
Really is. So
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay. Super cool. Well, what else about this is my other question. I feel like we could do almost a whole nother episode on this about like we are going to talk about interest rates, aren't we? Yes, that's our next episode.
Yeah.
Because I had a question around like how much buffer you should plan for, etc., which I think we can cover in next week's episode. Oh, well, I think we've nailed it.
Yes.
That just happened in a flash.
Yeah, and we'll put some show notes about the scheme. I think we'll put the link in there and things like that so people can find it because it's a bit of a mouthful. So
Definitely.
we'll do that.
Okay, awesome.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for listening today. We really appreciate it. And we hope you got something out of it that you can share with others. Please remember we are wanting to be the #1 podcast for women empowerment in Australia. So make sure you share, like, leave a review, put it on your socials, and make sure to follow us on social media as well. Thank you, and we'll talk to you all next week.